Hi everyone, my name's Evelyn and today I'm going to be answering some frequently asked questions so you can get to know me better. I was recently made aware that participating in the booktube newbie tag is kind of like an initiation ritual for anyone who joins booktube. My really good friends Ben and Carolyn recommended that I do this, and so I thought it would be the perfect opportunity for you to get to know me better and to know a little bit more about my reading interests. So without further ado, these are some bookish facts about me. I've been watching YouTube my whole life. I was a huge fan of Dan and Phil, of Troye Sivan, of Zoella, of Alfie, Joe, literally every early day YouTuber ever, PewDiePie, Marzia, like everyone. I grew up on YouTube. These people basically raised me. I grew up on YouTube and that like golden age of YouTube. Since I've been watching YouTube, I always wanted to start my own channel and I always felt very drawn to storytelling and to making videos. A little fact about me is my cousin and I used to reenact movie scenes. So my cousin and I, we just had an iPod, costumes and a dream. And that's what we would do. We would literally set up a little iPod and just record ourselves reenacting movie scenes, you know.
Hombre de la pistola, parte 1. Hola, Eve. Hola. ¿Qué es eso? Mira, Eve, un hombre con una pistola.
You know, we made our own version of Twilight, we made our own version of like horror films, we would make detective films, and I always took the role of like the director and also like the cameraman. It was, you know, a one-woman team and my cousin always got to play the cool roles. And so yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that a lot as a kid. So I would say I've always kind of been drawn to making videos, and again, like these were just things I would make for like me and my family. You know, I also used to do like little skits with my brother. You know, we would like do stop motion animation with our toys, and so I basically, yeah, I've always been drawn to storytelling. I've always been drawn to video editing, and just making like silly little videos and films and stuff for me and my friends and my family. And so I've always kind of like wanted to start, but I never really knew what I could contribute. I never really knew what I could do on YouTube. I kind of had to put that dream on back burner, and I was like, that's fine, I'll just, you know, carry on with life. And then recently, it was actually through my friend Carolyn. I met Carolyn last year through her husband, who is my partner's, like one of his childhood best friends. And meeting Carolyn was, I mean, she's an amazing person. If you haven't checked out her channel, I really recommend that you do. She's a full-time YouTuber and she talks about books and she's an illustrator. And so just being around Carolyn and her creativity and just listening to her talk about how, you know, how much she enjoys making these videos and how much she enjoys connecting with people through booktube, I thought, you know, like, I want to do that too. And I thought, this is, you know, this is my chance. So some of you may already know, but I'm an independent bookseller. And so I basically talk about books day in and day out, like every single day of my life. And so I just thought that it would be a great opportunity to just kind of record myself talking about books and see if I can like reach more people and connect with more people. And so yeah, that I just thought, you know, the stars are aligning. Everyone around me saying do it, and so I just kind of took the plunge and I went for it. So my channel is called A Much Needed Break, and I thought I could just kind of explain the story behind that. Basically, when I was a student, I was in my second year of university, my relationship with reading started to change a little bit, and I just found that because I had so much reading to do for my course, you know, we had 3 modules a week. So we had 3 modules a semester, which meant it was roughly like 3 books a week or 2 books and like a few chapters and, you know, further reading and stuff every week. I kind of felt like my relationship with reading changed and it began to feel like a chore. It began to feel like something I had to do. I really wanted to change that. I really wanted to find my love for reading again, and I just wanted to make reading fun. For whatever reason, my brain works is I have to trick myself into doing things. So if I want to do something, I have to like put a little spin on it. I have to find ways to challenge myself to keep myself like, just keep my brain like kind of like this. I decided, I was like, I'm going to make a Bookstagram account. And so what I did was I created an Instagram account where I would just review coffee and books. And it was anonymous, I didn't show my face on it, and I began to review like local independent businesses, like coffee shops and stuff, and places that I loved, and just giving them like a little spotlight. And then, you know, I didn't have many followers, I had about like 150 followers. And then over time, I like slowly started to show my face. Now I would do like sit down talking videos. I do like interviews and all sorts of like different kinds of book content. My Bookstagram started because I really needed a break, a much needed break. I was in need of a much needed break. And so I just kind of started challenging myself to read and do more stuff outside of the curriculum, and then just share my reviews. That's kind of where a much needed break came from. And so I very much want to transport the same sort of sentiment that I've created on Bookstagram onto booktube. I'm originally from Argentina, but I grew up in the UK. And so I moved to the UK when I was around 8 years old, and at that time I wasn't fluent in English and I didn't have many friends, and so for me books became very much like sort of solace for me. My favourite things to do were going to the library and doing the sort of 6-week summer challenge. I don't know if anyone remembers these, but I absolutely love this. I had never heard of anything like that before and I loved it. That was something that really like incentivized my reading as a kid. And then I would say that once I started like sort of like secondary school, I stopped reading just because I feel like this is like a canon teenage experience. If people around you don't really read, then you kind of stop reading, and so I just feel like I was just sidetracked by many things, you know, with sports and friends and socializing and just being a teenager, which is absolute hell. Don't recommend. I kind of fell out of love with reading. Well, not out of love. I think I stopped reading for pleasure, and I just stopped reading generally. And actually what kind of sparked my love for reading again was the, again, kind of like golden age, like 2014, golden age of dystopian literature and films. I think that, you know, absolutely sparked everything back. So I remember my friends and I reading Hunger Games, reading The Fault in Our Stars, reading the Divergent series, and then going to the cinema together to watch them. So I feel like then I began to start reading again. Around age 14, I picked up More Than This by Patrick Ness, and that book absolutely changed my life. It's one of the books that I sell the most in the bookshop because it absolutely like means the world to me. I think Patrick Ness is an amazing author, and More Than This, it was just like a book that found me at like the right time, and it found me at a time where I really needed to hear its message. And if it wasn't for that book, I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, I'm so grateful to Patrick Ness, love that man, and obviously to that book. I remember when I sort of applied for my degree, I very much didn't really know what my niche was. I didn't have like a special interest. You know, one of my close friends, her special interest is like modernism. One of my other close friends is very much, you know, like Gothic literature. And at the time, I didn't really have anything. I liked reading all sorts of things. It wasn't actually until my second year that I kind of found my niche, like my special interest. I remember that I was in my second year. My teacher Becky was the module coordinator for a module called Latin American Poetry. Even though I'm Argentinian, it never really dawned on me that, you know, Latin American literature was a thing. It never really occurred to me. And so when I saw this module, Latin American Poetry, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely have to do that. And so I signed up for it, and there, oh my God, this module was absolutely life-changing. I was introduced to authors like Javier Zamora, Cecilia Vicuña, Gloria Anzaldúa, Cristina Rivera Garza, like literally all of these authors that now are, you know, some of like my first recommendations, and, you know, just authors that I would like go to time and time again. But at the time, it was like my first time encountering them. It changed my brain chemistry. All of a sudden, I was reading poems and I was reading literature that was kind of expanding my conception of what literature and poetry can look like. If you've never read Cecilia Vicuña, she uses sort of writing as like a language, and so her poems are like sort of with letters and languages like scattered absolutely everywhere. You know, she's got a poem in the shape of a spiral, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, like I didn't even know literature could look like that. And the fact that, you know, she was so playful with language, switching between Spanish and English and Spanglish, and including words from Quechua and other indigenous languages, I was like, oh my god, like, whoa. And so for me, I feel like this was a turning point, because I thought, this is exactly what I want to study. This is exactly what I want to surround myself for the rest of my life. And it was here at this moment that I very much felt seen and represented, and I suddenly felt like there was a place for me in literature, because, you know, these were works that were coming from people from similar backgrounds to me, people who, you know, didn't belong to just one culture or the other, but they kind of belonged in this like third space in between where you don't belong to either, so you're your own separate entity. And, you know, the mix of Spanglish felt very familiar to me, and so I just thought, this is amazing. Kind of from that moment onwards, then it sort of that sent me down a rabbit hole to start sort of looking into translated literature. And I began to sort of start reading around the world. I began to read way more Latin American fiction. I began to read literature from other countries and independent publishers, and just kind of seeing like different ways that we could break outside of the canon, and the different ways that literature could look like. Now in the bookshop, I have my own translated literature shelf, and I've been very fortunate to work with the International Booker Prize for 2 years now. I worked with the Booker Prize 2 years ago as a Reading Challenge ambassador, and so there I was challenged to read the 13 books on the long list, and I was fortunate enough to attend the ceremony, and I was able to meet other like-minded readers and take part in an awards prize ceremony that sort of champions translated literature. This year I worked with the International Booker Prize team again, but this year I was a Reading Challenge ambassador, so I basically got to document my experience as an independent bookseller, and I got to create some like investigative journalism videos that sort of show how translated literature and awards prizes like the Booker Prize impact book sales and impact bookshops. So I got to interview some of like my favourite bookshops in Bristol, and I also got to interview the shortlisted panel of translators. So yes, I would very much say that like now my life's work is promoting translated literature. For me, you know, I would have really appreciated someone putting an Argentinian book into my hands and saying, hey, you might connect with this. Now, as a bookseller, you know, if I can help put a book into someone else's hands and it's exactly what they need and it gives them the representation that they're severely lacking, you know, for me, I'm like, that's my job done. That to me is like the biggest win. One of my favourite things about being part of Bookstagram is the community, and I absolutely love just being able to talk to people about books and getting so many new recommendations, and also just getting to buddy read with a few people from across the world. That's been like one of my favourite things. There's nothing that I love more than hearing about different kinds of books, authors, and you know, it's impossible for me to read every single book in the world, so I find that it's actually really kind of like fulfilling to hear about different kinds of books from other people. I feel like a sense of like investment in a way of, okay, I may not have read that book, but someone else that I know has read that book and has thought this, and so I kind of then take their opinions and comments on board, and so it's really nice for me to just be able to have those kinds of conversations with people. The people that I've connected with on Bookstagram are some of like the loveliest, kindest, most like heartwarming kind of people. It's just such like a wholesome community. We all read different kinds of books, and the fact that we can all just sort of sit down and talk about books with each other from all different parts of the world, like that to me is just absolutely amazing. I love my Bookstagram community, and I can't wait to build my own like booktube community as well. I would say translated literature is like my main thing, But within that, I love reading Gothic literature. I love reading, I had a friend describe it as like good for her kind of books. I really love reading like that kind of genre of like weird girl literature, like good for her titles, sort of like Otessa Moshfegh, Marianne Enriquez, Samantha Schweblin, Lucy Rose, like those kind of authors come to mind. I also love reading a lot of like literary fiction. I think that is just something I'm like quite naturally drawn to. I love reading that sort of stuff. I'm not as adventurous as I'd like to be. There are a lot of genres that I'm not going to say I don't like this genre, because I'll be honest, I probably haven't read like the right books for that genre. I'm not really a fantasy reader. I'm not really like a romantasy reader. I'm not a big non-fiction reader. I'm sorry. I really want to. I really want to get into non-fiction, but I just can't bring myself to. I'm sorry. Like for me, reading is an escape, and I don't want to be taking in facts. I'm definitely going to challenge myself to read more non-fiction. I'd love to try reading fantasy, romantasy, science fiction. I don't really think I've read much science fiction either. These are all genres that I'm like willing to try. I'm not going to straight up say no, I'm not a fan of them, because I'll be honest, I've not really ventured out into them. I've like dipped a toe, if that. Like I mentioned, I find that the easiest way to get me to read is through like making a reading challenge. I don't know why. I don't know why I have to like jump through so many hoops to get myself to read, because I love reading, but unfortunately I just do. At the moment, I created a Women in Translation Reading Month challenge. I'm just like making my way through that, and hopefully I'll provide like a little wrap up at the end of the month. I think something I'm thinking of doing is filming like a day in the life of like an indie bookseller. I even thought about filming like a week in the life. I don't really know if people would want to see that. Sometimes when work is a bit quiet, I'm always like, oh, I could be filming right now. So I thought, yeah, it might be quite interesting for me to take you along and show you like what my job is like and what I get up to. Also love to film some more interviews with authors and translators. I had so much fun doing that. In my job as like an indie bookseller, I also get to interview a lot of authors, and I get to do events. I think that is like my favorite aspect of the job. I love being able to sit down and chat with an author and, sort of like learn more about their process, sort of like their writing process, their editing, about their ideas. I really love having that like intimate one-to-one time with them. And getting to interview the shortlisted panel of translators this year was also just absolutely amazing. So I would really love to be able to sort of do that on this space as well, like on this channel. I'd love to be able to combine like that aspect that I love of my job so much with my love for like content creation and videos. So hopefully you'll be able to see some like interviews with authors, interviews with translators, day in the life of like an indie bookseller. I'm hoping to do some like reading check-ins, just sort of like throughout the year, just being like, these are books that I've read so far and this is what I think about them. I'm not going to put too much pressure on it. I just have like a few ideas for things that I'd love to do, and hopefully you want to watch along and come along with me. So yeah. I think I've answered pretty much everything. Let me know if you have any further questions in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. I hope that I've actually been able to answer these questions, because I feel like my brain was going off on tangents, and I don't know if I've answered the questions correctly. We will see. Find out when I'm editing these if I actually got to answer these questions or not. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you feel like you've gotten to know me a little bit better. But again, if there's any questions that I didn't answer, or if there's anything else that you want to know, leave me a comment down below.